my name is Richard Goss. I'm an actor and a filmmaker slash producer from Swansea in Wales. I've lived in London for the last 12 years. I started out as a musician from the age of 5 until 24. So I was a classical violinist at the age of 5. I did concerts and orchestras, solo performances. And then at 16, I switched to guitar, formed a heavy metal band, toured for many years, actually toured in Germany. We played at the Wacken Festival, which was a lot of fun. And then I was on tour in Japan, and I just kind of was tired of it. I still love performing, and we were traveling for hours and hours each day. So I was watching a lot of films, and I was like, wow, this is really appealing to me. And then I watched The Godfather and Heat, and I was like, that's it. I have to go and become an actor. So I couldn't afford drama school, but I sort of sold everything I had, moved to London. I slept on people's couches and all this kind of stuff until I got a job and I could save a bit of money and get a room somewhere. And yeah, I did that for about 6 months, and then started taking private acting lessons and just the usual route, auditioning, castings, and trying to get seen. And yeah, and then a few years ago I decided that really wasn't working for me. I had an agent that said some things that annoyed me. He basically said, like, what are you going to do when the acting doesn't work out? And I was like, wow, well, thank you for the vote of confidence. So I was like, okay, I need to take charge of this. And I read a blog actually about a BAFTA winning director who I've actually met and worked with since, who'd formed his own production company, written something, produced it. And I was like, man, that's so inspiring. I've just got to do this. And also, like the classic Sylvester Stallone story where, you know, he wrote Rocky, I was like, I need to write something for myself. And yeah, that's what I've been doing since. There were a number of factors, but primarily frustration. Wasn't getting seen for the type of things I enjoyed, wasn't getting seen, well, for anything much at all at one point. So I was like, all right, I need to make my own work. And then I'd met a few people who inspired me. I was in a Q&A with the actor Jason Fleming, and I got chatting with him, and I asked him, you know, what advice do you have for actors when there's long periods with no work and you're doing the whole bartending thing and all that kind of stuff? And he said, man, you know, if you can learn to write, and he said, you know, you might not be able to come up with crazy fancy stories, but actors should know dialogue, focus on dialogue. And I thought, well, that's really interesting, because yeah, I'm not going to be able to create a big $200 million sci-fi blockbuster, but I can write some interesting scenes. And then I met up with this director a few years later, Stuart Brennan. He's a BAFTA-winning actor, writer, director. He was very kind, very gracious, gave me loads of advice. And I just thought, yeah, I need to do this. So I started writing. I started thinking, what do I know? What do I know for myself? And I'm like, well, I'm frustrated, I'm broke, nothing is happening, I'm on minimum wage jobs, you know, this is not my dream. So I thought, well, that's interesting. Let's write a 2-minute showreel scene about 2 characters getting home from work. And it's a very dark comedy element. You know, what in their mind do they wish they could do to their manager or their boss who they hate, if they could get away with it? So I wrote this 2-minute scene, and then more and more ideas started coming. And I was like, oh, well, that really annoyed me today at work. That would make a great scene. And then I just kept, it spiraled from there. And I just continued writing from there, really, until I had enough for a web series. My DOP/editor I'd actually known for, God, about 12 years. We'd met on a terrible student film, and nobody knew what they were doing except for him. So we kind of gravitated very quickly towards each other, and we were like, we need to work together on something. And over the years, he'd helped me with self-tapes and all this kind of stuff. And then we lost touch for a little while when I left Wales, because he was studying in Wales at the time. And then I moved to London, to Greenwich. And then we reconnected, and I found out he lives like 20 minutes away from me. And I was like, this is perfect. and he's really I have so much respect for him. He's a master of his craft. I think he's going to go on to do huge things. He knows the ins and outs of all the technical camera stuff, so I was like, I have to get him on board with this. And yeah, we sound guys were just sort of ad hoc, because I would find a sound guy, they could only do 1 day out of 10, and then we get one who could do 3 days, so that was a little bit complex. So I was always kind of juggling that. So I think for the next one, I'd like to get one permanent sound guy on board. The location was quite interesting, actually, because I was going to location scouts. The two characters are in a very rundown, grimy flat in London. And location scouts in London were like, oh yeah, £2,000 a day. And I was like, that's my entire budget for the shoot. That's a joke. So I thought, well, I looked around and I was like, well, the flat I'm in is horrible. I'll just convert this place into a set. I was like, this place is a dump. So I ripped all the furniture out, dismantled the bed. I would go around charity shops, finding, like stained coffee tables and stuff to put all over the walls, and just, it looked like a crack house, basically, by the time I'd finished with it. But the bad thing about that was it looked fantastic on camera, but then the lockdowns happened. So I was essentially 8 to 10 months living in this hellhole, basically. So I was sleeping on the mattress on the floor until we got a little window where we could think, all right, we can shoot another 2 days here. Yeah, so that was quite complex. But do you know what? I learned a hell of a lot, what to do, what not to do, and it's going to carry on into the next film. I mean, actors are unemployed most of the year round. I would bounce between day jobs, night jobs. So at the time I was working in hospitality, corporate catering, bartending, waiting, and just trying to scrape together enough money to pay for all of this. So my God, like I would do double shifts, triple shifts, 16, 17, 18-hour days, sometimes bouncing between one company and another. There was a point I was working at the Odeon Cinema in Leicester Square, the O2 Arena at night bartending, and then on the weekends I'd be handing out flyers in Oxford Street and just trying to it was brutal. But again, I think everybody should do that at some point just to get a bit of an understanding of what it's like. So yeah, throughout Fried and then some of the lockdown, I was unemployed, and then I picked up other day jobs in between, just sort of survival jobs. Technology is the way the world is going, and it's constantly evolving, and it's just all online. I mean, I can't recall the last time I went to an in-person audition. It's just almost always exclusively self-tapes, and yeah, that's just it, really. And I think you've got to be so up to date and constantly keeping things fresh. I hate doing it, but regularly getting new headshots, new showreel footage, always something to try and keep at the forefront of the casting director's mind, and to show you're proactive about things, because it's so competitive. It's crazily competitive, and yeah, it's vitally important to keep all that stuff up to date, I think. And especially if you don't have representation, or if you're struggling to be seen for things, I think just trying to promote yourself any way you can, really. It's more important than ever to just take charge, make your own work, get yourself out there. Don't rely on, as we said, securing one big agent and then all your problems disappear. No, it doesn't. I've learned very painfully it's not like that. I don't know what it's like in Europe, but in the UK, there seems to be a bit of a thing about social class. And I've often been told, like, there was one agent I met with, and he was a very posh old guy, and he was like, oh, why on earth didn't you just go to drama school? Why didn't you go to RADA? And I was like, I can't fucking afford it, mate. Exactly. I remember my first ever audition, I was so broke, I had to sleep on a park bench in London to get there on time. I had to get, I don't know what the European equivalent is, but the megabus in the UK, you know, £6 from Swansea to London, it takes about 6 hours. It's like £1 an hour journey. You know, so I would say to potentially look past drama schools and the very expensive drama schools. There is a lot of what they would describe working class actors. There is a hell of a lot of talent out there that's not being looked at. And you know, you go online and you look on, say, IMDb Pro at who's working now, and it's very often private school, Cambridge, Oxford, Eton, then RADA, Lambda, and it's, you know, I think it's a shame that more and more actors without that privilege aren't being seen for things. And you know, it's a particularly tough industry anyway. So I think it would be good to try and open that up a little bit more. The other thing I would say for actors or anybody, like crew members or anything, is to just call out bad behavior more and more. I hope it's not punished the way it would have been years and years ago, where you get blacklisted or any of this kind of stuff. Yeah, anything that's unacceptable, it should be called out all the time. You know, like we're seeing with this agency situation in the UK right now. You know, a lot of this stuff has been open secrets for years within the industry, and people have reported it and nothing's been done until now. So yeah, I think that's a positive change. But yeah, on a positive note, I would just say create your own work and go for it. I can't say about one film. I've actually just done the biggest role of my life. And it was in November and December, thank you. But I'm not allowed to say what it is yet and all this kind of stuff. I have to wait for their studio to put out a press release and all that kind of stuff. But I will drop you an email once I'm allowed to talk about it, because I'd love to show you what it is. And I got to work with a childhood hero of mine, which was, it was some of the best weeks of my life. And that actually came about as a direct result of Fried, because they'd seen me, they'd seen it popping up everywhere, they'd seen the reviews, and then they invited me to come and do the casting for it, to audition for this part. So yeah, so that will be released at some point, I think this year, depending, you know, that stuff's out of my hands. The stuff I can control is my own work. Yes, I am getting together, so I'm going to be wrapping up the last bits of Fried, putting it out soon, releasing it. Then I'm actually in post-production for the short film, the proof of concept for my feature. The film is called A Choice, and it's about two people in a hugely abusive, toxic relationship, but they're kind of addicted to each other. They love each other dearly, but they're also ruining each other's lives. And there's a couple of twists in there that I think would be quite interesting. So I've finished the first draft of the feature. I've done the short version of it, finishing the first draft of the feature, and then I'll be redrafting that throughout the summer with an aim to getting it into production later this year, possibly September. And I'm writing a couple of versions of it. One that I can fund myself, which is sort of if I can't get finance, and then the second version, which is, you know, allows for a little bit more ambition if I can get a decent amount of finance for it. Give me a job. You know, aside from shameless self-promotion, watch Fried, watch my work, expand the horizons of who you watch and who you consider for top roles, because there's some fantastic actors out there that aren't being seen for anything. But I would also counter that then on the flip side, for actors, I would say try their jobs as well to see both sides of it, because I try to have a balanced viewpoint of it.